Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 2 of Bizarro Style, our Bizarro Style show in which we have various guests from various alliances, and we also sometimes just have ourselves. Joining me is my co-host, Bizarro, and
Hey everybody.
yeah, say hi. And we have a very special guest today. His name is Siphon, and introduce yourself, Siphon.
Hey everybody, I'm Siphon,
Nice.
leading the Paladin Corps, and happy to be here.
Leading the Paladin Corps. Attaboy.
Yep.
Yeah. So today's topic we have are for alliances, tips, and tricks. And these two gentlemen are going to be talking about basically for mainly new players, or even if you're a veteran player and looking for an alliance. So they're going to be talking about all those good features of basically how you are in an alliance and how you can work together, how you can maximize your gains, and overall have a better experience when you're in an alliance opposed to being a solo player. So take it away, guys. You guys can go ahead and talk about alliances today.
Thanks, Galahad. One of the reasons we wanted to do this is I am the leader of Bizarro's #1 alliance, and as Siphon said, he's the leader of the Paladin Corps. And we wanted to have we wanted the listener to hear different points of view on alliances, and as Galahad said, particularly for new players, how to find an alliance, what is expected of you in alliance. So I think what we'll do is we'll just start off by talking about finding an alliance for new players. Galahad, do you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Siphon, you can talk whenever you want, no problem. So finding alliances for new players, I'll start with my story. And basically, I was moving from alliance to alliance before I hit, I believe, level 60. Remember when level 60 was the cap? So I was rolling around from one alliance to another alliance because they didn't have their goals set out, kind of like we do in our alliance at Bizarro's #1 alliance. Our fearless leader, Bizarro, he has amazing goals set out, and he motivates us a lot, and he knows exactly what to do, when to do it, you need to reward your players, when you need to push your players. So having that key leadership, I didn't have that when I was starting out, and I was joining alliances in which I ended up being the leader in the end, and it was funny because I was an officer at one point. I was a leader then, and then a lot of the alliance members, they didn't know what to do. I was put into a leadership position before when I had no business being a leader because I was so new to the game. But I fumbled through a lot of alliances before I met Bizarro. And you can go ahead, Siphon. You can talk about your first experiences now.
When I first started, it was a buddy of mine and we downloaded the game. It was merely just a pastime. We're on break and and then alliances came out. I remember vividly. I mean, we were just super excited when they even announced it, and then all of a sudden one day it was like lunchtime, and my friend had gotten on, and he's like, "Hey man, the alliances are starting." So we hop on and everything, and we both started. We were in the same alliance, but we both started an alliance, and we had zero clue what was happening. There was all kinds of buttons being pushed, and it was just everybody was applying. We were just accepting everything, and we had really no idea what we were doing and why. And going forward, the alliance just fell apart right beneath our feet. It was one of those experiences where you just don't fully understand what was happening, and so we kind of went into limbo at that point. Players were leaving, and again, we had no business leading an alliance at that time, so we both jumped ship, and the alliance was dead, of course, but we both found an alliance called Major Keys. Everybody's I believe Hello Moto is still the leader of Major Keys. But I met Hilomoto, and then my friend joined, and then it was a while down the road. Before you knew it, Paladin Core was started. I had learned a lot from Hilomoto, doing the alliance posts and stuff, and making the it's what you don't see in the community center. It's those posts that stand out and you really sell your alliance, and that's what I really grabbed onto, was selling the alliance. And yeah,
Because
before you
Paladin
know
Core
it.
is now one of the older alliances in the game, right?
I wouldn't say older. I mean, I think we're closing in on 2 years old, but I guess, given that the game hasn't been out that long, you can call us on. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that was my experience. It was just a lot of go, and like I said, I'm just rambling at this point. But
Yeah, no worries, all good. Bizarro, would you like to tell your story on how you formed the alliance?
So I had almost quit the game and decided I had made a mistake. And when I quit the game, I had been part of Joker's League of Anarchy. And when I realized I made a mistake, I don't like to hold up an alliance by saying, "Oh, hold my spot for me." So my spot was already gone, and by the time I made the decision to come back, my spot was already filled. So we talked about forming a second alliance. With Joker's League of Anarchy. And then Siphon also gave us help because he allowed me to recruit from his junior alliance why am I having a brain fart? The New Age Assassins, excuse me. And from there, I had the support of Maddie Bow, and I think Galahad, you were in the same situation as me. You had thought about quitting. And then we all sort of came together, and with the support of Siphon and Joker, the alliance started to form. And I will say, I had been advertising myself to join another alliance in the community center, and nobody jumped on it. So I decided to form my own, and it worked out really well. I'm very pleased with how it's gone. But one thing I would say
very well
is
is an understatement. It went super, super duper well.
I am shocked, like, all the time when I see how well it's going. I am shocked, not because I didn't think it would happen, but I just didn't think it would happen that fast. But it really is, because Siphon is very supportive. We share a server together. He was very trusting in me, and without that, it probably wouldn't have gone so quickly. But it also, like, one thing, and I think it'll kind of nicely transition us into our conversation, is it was really because I had spent 2 years in the game, and I had tried to develop a lot of social capital in the game, which I tried to cash in all at once for the purpose of developing the alliance. So it's kind of a nice segue, because I wouldn't recommend anyone to try and start a new alliance as a new player, because you don't have a lot of that social capital built up yet.
Agreed.
Correct. So, with that being said, we can transition into finding an alliance for new players. So, what are your guys' suggestions on that?
Well, finding an alliance, I think you got to really dig in deep and see what type of player you are. You got to ask yourself a few different questions. One, and just stop me if you want to discuss and go. I'm just trying to roll with it.
No, go ahead. You're all good.
First question: how often will you log in? Obviously, it's a game. We can all agree on that. It's not a lifestyle, but some people have more time, want to put in more time. We could go on and on. Just simply ask yourself, how often will you log on? Twice a day? Once a day? Will you log on 10 times a day? I at least log on 11 times a day. Just throwing out a number. And it's not just to, like, play the game. I'll check for messages, or I'll check the shop. The shop refreshes every 4 hours. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
But how often will you log on? And then
I agree, because I think at a basic level, most leaders are expecting you to log on daily. And if you're not going to commit to logging on daily, I think some of the top alliances, which we'll talk about in a second, it's just not going to be enough. So you got to be at least logging in once a day.
Right. I agree. I agree with you guys. Yeah, me personally, I would say I log on 5 to 6 times a day. Like Siphon mentioned, I check the shop because you get new offers, you get refreshes, specifically refreshes for your PvP and PvE energies. So I keep tabs on that, and yeah, it depends on what type of player you are, and identifying what type of player you are, and then going ahead from there and thinking, will this alliance fit my personality? So, or my playstyle, I should say. Going on. There are a few more points. Any more points you guys want to touch on? Whether you are like a free to play or pay to pay. What do you gentlemen think about that?
Well, I don't. Again, you could ask any alliance leader. You'll find a mix of. I mean, even in the top alliances, they're still free to play, but those free to play players are dedicated players. They log on every day. They hit their minimums and all that. We'll talk about later, I'm sure, but it's just so the free to play and pay to play, and I'm occasional spender or whatever. Another big one would be I would touch a lot on communication.
I
Even
agree.
though I do require my members to get on Discord. I don't, however, require them to be social. They don't have to tell me about their day or anything. But if I get a message out and I mention everybody, an acknowledgement that they got the message, just it's all grounded and on the same level. So
I think that's exactly right.
Communication's a good one for if you were wanting to be successful in an alliance.
Yeah, I agree with you both. Bizarro, what do you have to say? Anything you have to add to the communication style?
I mean, I think, like in any relationship, communication is key. And when you're dealing with 29 other players, as Siphon said, having everybody be on the same page is critical. So some players want no communication. I've actually had players that have cycled through my alliance that don't want to communicate at all. And I found that it usually doesn't last very long, not because I don't want them in there, but because if they can't get on the same page as the rest of the alliance, then there's a lack of continuity there. Some people only want to communicate in the game chat, but I think, as we all know, the in-game chat isn't that great, which is why a lot of the alliances do end up relying on Line or Discord. But it is a style, and we're not trying to say you should be this, but what we are trying to say is you need to find an alliance that matches your communication style. So if yours is that you don't want to communicate, then you need to find an alliance that's okay with that. If you only want to use the in-game, you need to find an alliance that's okay with that, and so on.
Right, I agree. I agree with that 100%.
And it's not that it's again, it's not that it's right or wrong. I mean, our two alliances just, I mean, you could talk to any of the top 30 alliance, they would all say the same thing. They want some form of communication acknowledgement. It's not that it's wrong if you don't, and it's not that, it's just those particular players want that kind of communication. That's how they succeed. That's how you get up. I really want to relay that there's no right or wrong. It's preferred method.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think it is a key to success, because it's like I said, I think any other relationship without communication of some sort, it's going to fall apart at some point.
I agree. And yeah, you were cutting out a little bit there, Siphon. So yeah, but we did end up hearing you in the end. It is The top 30 alliances, it is very important. They do communicate with one another, and that's how they succeed. So our next point, level of competition, we touched on this a little bit with free to play and pay to play. Before you gentlemen want to add anything to this?
I think we'll cover it more later.
More later? Okay.
Yeah.
So our next thing is like, what do we want out of an alliance? Like, what are you looking for? Your preferred style, I would say. Would you guys elaborate on this for newer players?
Oh yeah, when I started out, I really didn't understand what I was looking for. So, as my time in the game progressed, it became more apparent that I wanted more characters and I wanted better rewards and I eventually wanted the prestige and just say, hey, I'm up in the top alliance. And then, like I mentioned briefly, that happened in Major Keys, and then Major Keys and the Paladin Corps, the only two alliances I've ever really been a part of. The one I started before, it lasted maybe a week, but so I'll reference Major Keys a lot as well, for my past experiences. But yeah, eventually I wanted the camaraderie, and I eventually downloaded the Discord app because at first I was not a player that communication. Play the game. I wanted my character fragment, make them super powerful, play, and then it was a side gig. I just was serious about it. Really, really started enjoying the game, so I got more serious in what I needed to do to progress to that top tier spectrum of a player and get up there.
Right. Bizarro, what do you look for in an alliance? What do you want out of an alliance?
Well, like Siphon, I wasn't sure what I wanted at first, but the one thing I've learned that I do want is, and he uses this word, camaraderie, which is really friendship. I think, in a way, and I don't know if Siphon would agree with this, I think the friendship and the camaraderie actually makes leadership easier, because the more you get to know your members and the more that you actually care about your members, the easier it gets to lead them, because when they appreciate you as the leader and the role of that comes with being a leader, and you care about the members of your alliance and not just their success in the game, but whether they're okay in real life. Would you agree with that, Siphon?
Wholeheartedly.
And then the other thing that Siphon mentioned was the rewards, building up his characters. I think that's something everybody wants out of an alliance. You get the alliance mission rewards. These are the daily rewards, whether it's PvP or heroic missions. And then the introduction, of course, of raid rewards, which is something my alliance has focused on more than the daily alliance mission rewards, which is, again, something that when you're choosing an alliance, you should be thinking about, which is, what do I want out of it? And if it's more of a raid intensive alliance where they're going to go after more raid rewards and you're a raid player, then you're going to want that alliance. Whereas if you are more somebody who wants the alliance currency to make purchases in the shop, then you're going to want that. Or maybe it's a mix, but you should try to figure out what is the alliance all about.
Right. So basically, to summarize this whole thing, the point that you guys are trying to make is that the alliance that you're looking for should fit your goal and your play style.
Exactly.
And I agree with both. I agree with both of you guys. Moving on. There are different types of alliances in the game. There are PvP alliances. There are PvE oriented alliances. Although PvP, I would say, is pretty much everybody does PvE. There, like Bizarro mentioned, our alliance is a very raid-oriented alliance. So our goal is to always be in the top 5 raiding alliances if we can end up achieving that goal. and so far it's been good. But that
Yeah, that's
determines.
an.
Yeah, go ahead, Siphon.
Sorry to interrupt you. I mean, it's just incredible to see you guys up there.
Thank you so
So
much.
I just, yeah, I just wanted to say that you
Yeah,
guys do fantastic.
that's back to you guys' point. Communication is key. Like the members of our alliance, we communicate a lot with each other, and having a leader such as Bizarro is we let me just say we are very lucky to have Bizarro as our leader.
You guys are
He's
gonna embarrass me.
he's usually on top of everything. And since we share a server, Siphon, I notice you as well. You are usually on top of everything. So it's fantastic having you guys both here today. And yeah, I mean, the type of alliances determine basically the future of the alliance. So would you guys elaborate on what type of alliances you guys are?
Yeah.
So, Siphon, you should take the lead here because you did a great job of sort of creating these categories of alliances.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, the way I break them down, and this is strictly my point of view. You have your top 100 alliances, and then you have your top 10 alliance. Number one is part of top 10, but it has its own separate reward category and everything. But still, and then beyond that, I break it down into the top 30, and then from that's your top tier alliance, and then your mid tier alliance is 31 to 70, and then your up and coming alliance is 71 to 100. And then beyond that, you have your new alliances with 15 members or less, and you have your stale alliance, which I just recently asked a couple players to uh, come and join Paladin, and they had 12. They have 12 members, and the member I talked to sent me screenshots of the login portion of the alliance tab. There was 3 members out of 12 who had logged in the last 24 hours, and then after that it was 8+ weeks was their last login. I was like, man, you're in a dead alliance. I call it a stale alliance, but it's a dead alliance. And then you're still active. He's communicating on Discord to me, and it's just like, what are you doing? Come on over. But yeah, that's how I break it down, really.
And I think it's helpful because we're not saying to the listeners that this is a strict way of categorizing alliances, but it's good to have an idea of the way we categorize something that's not naturally categorized because it helps us to think about what are the characteristics of those alliances. So like your top tier alliances that Siphon mentioned are going to be ones that are going to have a lot of structure. They're going to have communication requirements. They're going to have higher point requirements. In other words, they're going to expect the members of the alliance to put up a lot of points. What those are or PvP points. They have a strict system for accepting and removing players. There's going to be a strong leadership, otherwise they wouldn't be in the top tier. Usually have zero problems recruiting people, which means they typically don't need you as much as you need them. And I know that sounds bad, but I'd rather say the reality behind it than ignore that reality, because if a player is under the expectation that they can't be replaced by a top tier alliance, typically wrong.
Typically, yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, and that goes for when you go into, whether it's Reddit or you go into the CC or the community center. When I say CC for any new players, but you know you're not trying to sell yourself, because you're attempting to become a part of something larger than you as a player. And to get where you want to get in those top tier alliances, you have to use teamwork. You as a single player will not make or break one of those top tier alliances.
Agreed.
I agree. Yeah. Bizarro, you want to elaborate anything on Siphon's point?
Well, the only thing I was just going to continue with is sort of what the characteristics of what he called a mid-tier alliance were. So the mid tier was, as he said, 31 ranked 31 to 70, and when we say the rank, we're talking about in the weekly rankings for alliance missions. So a mid tier is usually a full team or a close to full team, and they can have mixed membership. Mixed meaning that some might be casual players; these are your free to play or occasional spenders, and then some of the members might be those who want to climb higher on the leaderboard. And I think we went through a period like that where we were trying to figure out, sort of what we were. Did we want to just coast in the top 100, or did we want to shoot higher? But we still had some structure, and we had weekly and daily point minimums, but we didn't enforce them as heavily. And what I found is the more serious we got, the more we were enforcing our minimums, because we did want to rise higher, and the mix started to be more of a mix of those who wanted to climb the leaderboard, and the casual players sort of filtered themselves out.
But and just to touch on that, when we say casual, I know you're listing off our points there. There are free to play in those upper alliance as well, but like I said, they are on top of their stuff, and they either have a system of, the game gives you gold. I'm just going to throw this out for an example. The game gives you 6,000 gold a month just for logging in, and if you were to save that gold and you spent 500 gold every 2 heroic battle days in a week tournament, then you could get your 5 to 6 points, and that's strictly just being free to play, just riding off of what the game gives you. It's no money put in, it's just well managed use of resources. So I mean, when we say mid tier and your casual players are there, it's a mix or match. There's casual in your upper alliances as well. I mean, but they have, I guess you could break that down into further. There's two types of plays. One that's strictly free to play that logs on twice a day, and then you're free to play who logs on 8 times.
I agree.
Better use of resource. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and like one point I would make along the lines of what you just said is neither you or I are ever telling our members to spend gold or spend money.
Absolutely not.
We just want them to hit our objectives.
Yeah, like being a member myself. I like Bizarro has never told me, hey, by the way, buddy, you mind forking over 2k more gold? He never holds us hostage like that. He's super understanding, and most of the leaders of the alliances are always super understanding, depending on the circumstances. And both of you make very valid points. We've spoken about a lot of things here, and a small thing that I would like to add, what we might have missed and what alliances want out of other players is, speaking of loyalty, you cannot bounce around from alliance to alliance and expect to end up in a top tier alliance. So what do you guys think about that?
I agree 100%. I mean, it's getting harder and harder now. I mean, you have a Discord channel of just leaders of alliances talking to one another, and if you are bouncing around from alliance to alliance, word gets out. It's just the way it is. You become unreliable, and there's nothing that any alliance wants that somebody who comes in and then has a bad day or something and rolls out. They end up going to another alliance, and it's just, yeah, well, you nailed it on the nose there with the loyalty.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were saying about communication, and also what we were saying about we never expect anybody to spend. So like if a member comes to me and says, hey, I'm having a rough time in real life, I don't think I can meet the goals today or this week, or I'm going to be out of town, I don't say, "Oh, well, you are forever banned into all eternity." I say, "Hey, no problem. We understand real life happens. All we ask is that you communicate." Or even if I have a member that says, "Hey, my finances are tough right now. I can't spend like I normally do." I don't kick anybody out for that as long as they're communicating with me. But the loyalty is really key to me. I don't want somebody who I've been very understanding about them. They've grown with my alliance. They've gotten the rewards from the alliance. And then suddenly they're out the door because they think they're getting a better offer somewhere else. That doesn't jive well with me.
And yeah, I can probably speak on behalf of most alliances. It wouldn't jive well with them either. So as a new player, you don't, if the alliance isn't working for you because you are, if 10 people are inactive, you're putting up a bunch of points all the time. And okay, we can talk then. You need to find a better alliance that suits your potential there. So, but you can't jump to a top 20 and they're pushing for number 10 or whatever, and then they don't make it. You get mad and try and find an alliance that will push and make top 10 or whatever, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I like the way you made that distinction, because there is a difference. Like, I would still say communicate with your leader. Say, "Hey, here's why I'm unhappy." And if the leader basically says, "Well, I'm not going to do anything about it," we're not saying don't jump to another alliance, because you have to be happy with your alliance. But I think the key is, number one, try to resolve whatever the issue is before you jump. And don't be jumping from 19 to 18 in 1 week because you think you're going to get a little better. And then when 18 doesn't do well, you're back to 19 and so on. That's not going to be real regarded in the community. And as Siphon said, the leaders do talk. We now have a channel where we're talking to each other on Discord. So we do know who these players are. And this is not like some ominous word of warning. It's just saying, be a good community citizen.
Agreed.
So they are watching us, guys. Just so everyone, like the government. No, I'm kidding.
Me no watching you.
But yeah, transitioning into our next point, you guys made some very valid points, and I agree with you guys 100% on most of the things that you guys have said today. On actually all of the things that you guys said today. But yeah, so the next point that we have here is starting your own alliance. When is it a good time to start your own alliance, and when is it not a good time to start your own alliance? Would you gentlemen like to elaborate on that?
Sure. I think we touched a little bit on the beginning. If you're brand new, I get the excitement. You just unlocked the alliance capability at level 10 with your buddies or whatever, and you want to start a new alliance. Everybody does. It's fine. It's just the reality of it is that if you are a level 10 player and you make a recruiting post, say, "Hey, I have a new alliance, come join me," I'm just sorry to say it's probably not going to bode well. It's just a matter of, there's a few factors. One being your social pull. Um, Nobody knows you at that point, so, and you're still new. That's another factor. You're brand new. You maybe have 8 characters. So the fact that there's 100+ characters available now, and the 5 pointers are always 2 reworks that are already in the game, and then the brand new ones, it's going to be hard for, unless it's just you find 30 brand new players and you all come together. Even then, you'll have a hard time getting that alliance off the ground because you're all in the same boat, fortunately. And you need to find, like we've been saying, that alliance that can help you progress. And I think this would be a good spot, Bizarro. You and I both have different things we're doing within the alliances to help new players. Um, I've recently just started my own with the officers there, and but bringing in new players to speed their progress along. So what I just brought up with my alliance, and as the leader, I don't make any decision on my own. It's it's a vote of the officers and myself, or it's a vote of the entire alliance. When it affects everybody in the alliance, I put it in the group chat for everybody to vote on, and that's 30 people voting on this in majority rules, and that's just how we roll. And so what we're doing now is we have one spot open, um, and we accept one new player, and we have one new player, and he's a level 46 now. He came in at a level 10, and he's got probably a third of the characters unlocked now, and he is now able, and he's getting those new debut characters, and he's able to put up our on those weeks um, the minimum requirement that we set in the Paladin Corps, and it was agreed upon that he wouldn't be subject to our 3 strike rule and all that. I don't have to get into that, but he he just rides along, and he gets, as long as the only stipulation we had is he logs on daily and we can see progress. So the fact that I can get on and look at his roster and then see that he's logged on and everything, that's what we look for. And so far, so good. It's working great. And then I know
there's a lot of good points in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Siphon.
Oh, no, you're fine.
There's a lot of good points in there, because I agree. This is a good time to. You mentioned the program that you do. We had a mentor program in Bizarro's #1 Alliance where we had several newer players. Excuse me. And what we did was we assigned every newer player with a veteran player, and that was their point of contact to say, if you have specific questions, want advice. And mine was Bizarro Flash in the game, and Bizarro Flash, much like Siphon's newer player, went from barely having anybody to having a really diverse and large roster. And I would talk to him actually over voice chat for Discord, and that was going on. You multiply that by 5 or 6 going on in our alliance. And it wasn't to say that we were their only point of contact. It was just to say, if you want to have one person that you can depend on to always be there to answer questions, then this mentor program will do that. And of course, you still had the availability of all the players, which is, I think, another benefit of an alliance in general, is that shared knowledge that you get. And then the other was one other point that you made that but I'm getting old and now the thought is falling out of my head. So you mentioned the mentor program. What was the other thing you mentioned, Siphon?
Oh, man, you can't put me on the spot like that.
Oh, you didn't know there was going to be a quiz at the end of this?
No.
So yeah, while you guys think about that, shout out to Bizarro Flash, by the way. I've been noticing his progress through the game too, and he's been doing fantastic. I agree. The mentorship program that we had was a fantastic idea, and a lot of newer players have been asking questions, and we always try to help them out that way. But
yeah, I just view them as the future of the game. I mean, if there's no future of the game, there's not going to be a future of the game.
I agree.
I agree with that so much. I'm glad you said that. I mean, it just can't be, you're looking for a level 80 player, and we need a level 80 player with all the tunes. I agree with you 100%. The new players, I mean, where do they go? And then more often than not, I mean, just think about it. If they can't get anywhere, and they can't get anywhere fast, stop.
My brain cell that had the thing I wanted to talk about finally showed up again, and that was one of the things that you mentioned that made me think about it was everything we have to go through as alliance leaders is really, I think, a question somebody should ask themselves before they start an alliance, which is, do you really want the responsibility of managing an alliance? Because it's fun, and there is a lot I gain from it. I can't deny that, but it is a responsibility. You have to be willing to tally up scores. You have to be willing to discipline members when they need it. You have to be willing to congratulate members when they deserve it. But it is a responsibility.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah. Unanimous decision. We all agree. So just small thing before we transition to the next to our next point. What do you guys think about veterans? Should they start their own alliance?
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of players. I mean, okay. I can backtrack there. I guess to go hit back on Bizarro's point. Maybe being an alliance leader is for everyone. Um, it does take a certain amount of work, unless your members completely don't care. But I know all of mine care. I know all of yours care. But yeah, a veteran player, for sure, you have all the capabilities you need to do it. It's just a matter of, are you going to keep the point? Are you going to keep everybody in line and focused, not get into a huge alliance debate or fight or anything? You got to be the moderator. And the big thing is you have to respect everybody. You can't just be the judge, jury, and executioner. You have to be understanding.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that, because to your point before, I mean, we lead by democracy too. I am not some dictator who's giving people the axe and cackling in the background. That guy's gone. That you won't stay going very long if that's your style of leadership.
Yeah. You can't be like Judge Dredd people.
I am the law.
Exactly. And somebody asks him, what did you do? I judged him. But anyway, we're wrapping this up. Last few thoughts and advice and general encouragement for players. What are your thoughts on giving positive feedback and encouragement to players to either stay in the alliance or perform better?
Zara, you gonna lead this one?
I can lead this one. So, first of all, if I remember correctly, you have to be level 20 before you can even join an alliance. And I would say start with an alliance that makes sense for you, because that's why we were talking about the different types of alliances. You want it to be a good fit between what type of player you are and the type of alliance. And keep in mind that you got to be patient throughout this process. You can't expect magic on the first day that you hit level 20.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree with you, Bizarro. Anything you want to add before we close this out, Siphon?
Yeah. Mine's more towards the newer players. I tell my friends this. I think I have a handful to play this. I always tell them they're going to hit a peak in the game. It's like right around, when you reach level 45 and there's a certain part in the campaign where you can't get past and you feel like you're stagnant. I'm just like, you just got to power through. You have to replay that stuff, and get into an alliance that produces numbers. All right, find it. Whether it's not, because they're always like, well, alliance are you in? And it's like, well, I can't accept you right now. And it's just a friendly back and forth banter, everything. But find that alliance that is best suited for you, and don't give up. Post on the CC and ask for help and look for those. I know the Corps. We're actually we're actually getting ready to launch a second alliance at reset. So it's just our way. I haven't said anything to anybody, but we're actually getting ready to launch another one, and we're going to see how it plays out. Recruiting is just difficult, so this will be an alliance more suited for newer players, and we're just going to accept everybody and see where everybody stands. And it's a lot of work, and I'm prepared for it. But I think our last note, Bizarro, was you get out of the game what you put into it.
Yeah.
So I'll end on that.
Yeah. The only other thing I would say too is, the way you present yourself in the game is really important. You want to be a good community citizen. Certainly none of the alliance leaders want to have to babysit anyone or deal with extreme personality problems. Again, we like working with people. We understand that real life happens, but you want to be a good community citizen. And so thinking about the way you present yourself in the community, I think, is really important.
And then you're dealing with gamers in general. Some players it may not be that important to them, but if you want to get really high up in the game, then you have to deal with the fact that people are competitive gamers and they play the game to be competitive, just like any sport.
Agreed.
Yeah, and closing out the show, I do agree with Siphon that at the end of the day, people are gamers, even though it's a mobile game. I understand. Coming from basically a PC gamer, we do see, I would say, a lot of PC gamers have this notion that mobile gamers are not real gamers, but no, they are. I mean, I play games on my PC and on my cell phone, so your point is absolutely correct, Siphon. And so I'll just anything you guys want to add before I wrap this up, or
not me?
Okay,
thank you for having me on the show.
It was an absolute pleasure. Let me tell you.
It was.
Yeah, and all thanks to Siphon and Bizarro for basically for the idea for today's episode. It was actually their collaborative effort, and I'm just a moderator here. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. Do remember to share, like, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.